So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. The Detroit Lions are set to kick off their 2022 season this Sunday versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And we thought after the preseason that the roster was set, that we knew who was going to play, we knew who was going to be there, we knew who was going to start. And then, of course, NFL reality set in, and we had some roster changes, some roster updates, and unfortunately, some injury updates as well. So today, we're just going to go over the last week's events. We're going to go over the new players, the old players, the players that are currently going to start and play in week one, as well as the starter that is going to miss week one and the consecutive weeks following. So with that being the case, we have a lot of roster updates to go over today. So without any further ado, let's start off with the first thing that happened this week being, of course, the Taylor Decker contract reconstruction. Now, the Detroit Lions, after the preseason, had a few $1 million that they had to clear up in dead cap. Just with the cuts, the way that the contracts worked out, the Lions had a couple $1 million that they had to pay off. And in doing so, they went to restructure Taylor Decker's contract. They turned some of his signing bonus into base salary, allowing them to open up a few $1 million this season. Taylor Decker is still getting the same amount of money on his contract, but he is going to, just make it a year or two from now opposed to right now so that they can open up salary cap for this year when they need it at the moment. Not a whole lot of big news here, right? It's not like a big extension or a big, big reconstruction with more or less money, but I did think it was noteworthy enough to tell you guys. Now, the big addition and the big breaking news for additions this week is not one of my favorites. If you guys are unaware, if you guys have not been around the channel for very long, and if you're new here, first off, welcome, but we are not a big fan of Tim Boyle around here. Not a whole lot of Lions fans are fans of Tim Boyle. I think a lot of people were very excited when Tim Boyle was released very early on in the roster cutting stages. And unfortunately, Tim Boyle is back in Detroit. Now, he is not a member of the active roster as he is the third string quarterback on the practice squad, but it's Tim Boyle, and I cannot be happy with Tim Boyle being a quarterback on this roster. And maybe it's petty, maybe it's, bias, and, maybe it's not a big deal because he's a practice squad quarterback. Personally, this is the first major signing this year that I disagree with, right? Typically, when there's a signing, I try to look at the bright side. I try to look at, okay, what can they bring? Why did we sign them? Do they fill a role? Do they have some skill set that we don't have yet? Do they, fill X, Y, and Z role in the offense or defense? The answer to that question for Tim Boyle is no, he does not. He's not accurate. He doesn't make very good decisions. He doesn't have any pocket awareness. He's basically Daniel Jones, but worse. And that is not a quarterback that I want on my roster. Now, I understand that potentially he could be back just as a worst case scenario. He knows the playbook. But at the end of the day, I still just don't think it's a very good signing. I think if you wanted a developmental guy, there's better guys out there than Tim Boyle. I think if you wanted somebody to develop into maybe a future backup or maybe even a future starter, right, there's better guys out there. I know the Jets cut a quarterback that a lot of people liked. I know that Kellen Mond is still out there, former third-round pick who would be a great practice squad developmental quarterback, right? There's better options than Tim Boyle. Even David Blau was a better option than Tim Boyle. And maybe it's not a big deal because, again, it is just a practice squad quarterback, but this is one of the very few signings that I personally disagree with for the Detroit Lions, and I don't think it was a very good signing or pickup for Detroit. Now, getting on to the major news of the week. If you haven't heard yet, Halapoulivaati Vaitai, the starting right guard of the Detroit Lions, has been placed on the injury reserve list, meaning he will not return until at minimum week 4 of the NFL season, which means he is eligible to return with Romeo Okwara, Josh Paschal, Jameson Williams, and Jerry Jacobs. If all of those players are healthy by week 4, the Lions should get a huge boost in the second month of their NFL season, but likely not all of them will return at the same time. Halapoulivaati Vaitai played a couple snaps in the preseason, played the first drive versus Atlanta, and I believe played the entirety of the first quarter in Pittsburgh. Didn't get hurt. I'm not sure what happened between Pittsburgh and now that would cause him to go on injured reserves, but he is there and he will not start at all for the Detroit Lions for the first month of play. Now, this is a big blow for the Detroit Lions, right? And I know there's going to be a lot of people saying, and I've seen a lot of people say, okay, he's the weakest link on the offensive line. He's the worst offensive lineman we have. It's not a big deal. We can just plug somebody else in and play and be completely fine. That isn't true. This is a big blow for the Detroit Lions, and it is going to impact their running game and their pass blocking game for Jared Goff. Now, with that being said, the Lions' backups are very capable, right? Logan Stenberg looked great in the preseason, and Tommy Kramer started games last year, as did Evan Brown. They can do rotations where they could put Frank Ragnow at right guard and put Evan Brown right back at center. I think that is going to be the thing that happens, is that would leave the best 5 offensive linemen on the field for the Detroit Lions. But make no mistake, this is a loss for the Detroit Lions, and this is a significant loss, right? When you lose a guy that gave up 0 sacks in over 1,000 snaps a season ago, that is a loss, right? Big V might be our best run blocker in the running game, and that is no longer there. Him and Penei Sewell would continuously and constantly open up holes for the running game on the right side of the offensive line, and I don't think the Lions have another player on the roster that is going to move people in the way that Big V did. Now, with that being said, I do think that if Frank Ragnow was to slide over to right guard, I think that they would still be able to move people. I think him and Penei Sewell will be pretty good at, being people movers and opening up holes, but again, it is a significant loss. Now, I think the Lions will be able to combat it. I do think the Lions, regardless of who they plug in, whether it's Evan Brown, whether it's Tommy Kramer, Logan Stenberg, or even Frank Ragnow, I do think they will be okay at the right guard position, and I do think their offensive line will continue to play like a top unit in the NFL. They were a top 15 unit last year without Frank Ragnow and Taylor Decker for large segments of the season, and the offensive line not once played healthy a season ago with 5 starters across the line. Hopefully Big V can return by week 4 and we can finally see this dominant unit play as a full group in a regular season game that matters. But for right now, for the first month of the season, Big V is not active. Now, the last bit of news today came from a press conference this morning where the reporter asked Dan Campbell who was going to be calling offensive plays this season, and Dan Campbell didn't have an answer. Right, as of right now, we don't know who's going to be calling offensive plays. We don't know who is going to be in the ear of Jared Goff making the play calling decisions, whether it's going to be newly appointed offensive coordinator Ben Johnson or second-year head coach and the guy that called it a lot last year in Dan Campbell. Now, Ben Johnson was the offensive play caller for the entirety of the preseason, and personally, I thought he did very well. I thought he was really good. I thought he put his players in positions to succeed. I thought the starting offense looked very good for a large majority of the drives that they were in. Of course, they were perfect when all 11 starters were on the offense and they were moving versus all 11 of Atlanta's defensive starters. I thought the offense looked good. I thought the offense, even with the backup quarterbacks, moved very well, right? With David Blau, the offense moved smoothly. With Tim Boyle, it stalled a little bit, but that was more because Tim Boyle can't throw the football than the fact that, Ben Johnson wasn't calling the right plays. He was putting his players in a position to succeed. Some of the players didn't execute, but that isn't on Ben Johnson. I thought he called a very good preseason, and personally, I do believe Ben Johnson should be the offensive play caller going into the season. But we do not officially know who is going to be it. If I had to guess, I would say it would be Ben Johnson, but more likely than not, it will be a collaboration between the two. Hopefully, Ben Johnson can kind of start to pull away with that role as the season goes on and as the season continues. But for right now, we do not currently know who is going to be calling plays in a week's time. But with all that being said, that is the big news coming out of the Lions training camp today. That is the big news coming out of Allen Park, right? Big V's hurt. Taylor Decker's got a restructured contract. Tim Boyle, unfortunately, is back in the building, and we do not officially know who is going to be calling offensive plays on Sunday. So those are all things to look out for. Those are all things to keep in mind this season, and especially this Sunday going into Philadelphia. We'll be back tomorrow with an official game day prediction. We're going to come back with an Eagles versus Lions prediction. Who's going to win, who's going to lose, comparing the two rosters and everything like that. So if you're excited for that, come back tomorrow at 1 o'clock and we will have that video ready for you. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.